The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.
Welcome back to the show, all Cherries fans and also West Ham fans. Good to have you with us. Now, of course, last time out, the Cherries beat Ipswich Town, again in dramatic fashion. From 1-0 down, of course, we beat them 2-1 in probably, I think it was the last 8 minutes again, wasn't it? I'm not going to check it right here and now, but you know, let's just say we've done that twice this season. All right, the Everton one was a little bit more dramatic, but yeah, 2 times this season. Hopefully, let's not do that again. Let's make sure that we don't get put in that position. But of course, we have got a game against the Hammers on Monday night under the lights at Dean Court. And Julen Lopetegui, of course, he was involved in El Sacico against former manager Gary O'Neill. He managed to save his job, but how much longer for? Now, before we do get into the preview, here's a little bit about our sponsors, Dental on the Banks. To find out more about them, visit dentalonthebanks.co.uk. So like I say, Julen Lopetegui is a man under pressure. Could this be his last game in charge of West Ham? Were West Ham fans happy that David Moyes was sacked? We're going to find out a lot more. And also, one man that I really wanted at this football club, Crysencio Summerville, we need to ask that as well, how good he's been for West Ham. Now, I have spoken to this guest before. He's not actually been on the channel. I've been in his studio. Of course, he is the host of The Tap-In and also We Are West Ham podcast. It is the one and only Will Pugh. Welcome to the show, Will. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, all right, Craig. Yeah, very well indeed. I say very well indeed. West Ham are absolutely awful, but the rest of our life's going all right. So yeah, pretty good.
Fair enough. Before we get going, of course, there was something that did happen on Saturday, and of course, Mikel hopefully is making a full recovery. I know he's still in hospital at the moment, but going into that game on Monday against Wolves, I guess that it took, football always comes second to something like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, of course, mate. Yeah, by all means. I mean, fortunately, it sounded like it was a bit touch and go for a little while. Lots of people have seen all the images of the crash, which weren't very nice at all. But yeah, fortunately for Mikel, I say fortunately, he's got a broken leg. Whether or not he'll play football again or not is sort of still up in the air. For now, he's 34. Obviously, I think I might be wrong on this. I think his contract expires at West Ham at the end of the season. So you sort of wonder whether he'll play football, but as you say, far more important that he's sort of still around at all, especially for his young family, kids, and all that sort of thing. So, fingers crossed he'll make a full recovery. Whether we see him in a West Ham shot shirt again or not, no one knows. But yeah, he's been a great servant to the club. So yeah, we're all behind him. Hope he gets better soon.
Yeah, and likewise, I think the whole of the football family. He's such a nice, pleasant guy. Whenever you see him on TV, he's just so down to earth and such a nice bloke. He's probably, even when he's not playing, he's probably a good man to have around the place, isn't he?
Well, yeah, you'd think so. Yeah, he's certainly got that larger than life personality, isn't he? I think lots of West Ham fans would tell you that he's probably played a little bit too much in the last few years. Not his fault at all. He's always tries his best. He's been a great servant to the club. It just you'd sort of feel as his level dipped a little bit. You'd hope a club like West Ham and the sort of size and stature and where the club have been in recent years and want to be on a bit more of a sustainable basis, that they'd have been able to find someone to perhaps replace him. But Mikel turns up every day, works his hardest, does his best for the club, and that's all you can ask for. Really, it's not his fault that West Ham haven't found an adequate replacement for him. He's hardly a goal machine these days, but I won't have I haven't got a bad word to say about Mikel Antonio before this. Do you know what I mean? He always tries his best, and I think that's all you can do.
Well, hopefully, fingers crossed. All of our thoughts are with Mikel and his family at the moment in time, and hopefully he will make a full recovery. And I'd love to see him in a West Ham shirt again.
Quite, mate, quite.
Yeah. Well, going on to, of course, Monday's match against Wolverhampton Wanderers and the situation that Lopetegui, or as I've seen online as well, Flopetegui, finds himself in at this moment in time. What did you make of that match? Because I watched it and West Ham, I'm going to say, were the better team. However, that's not the levels that West Ham fans expect, is it?
No, if I'm honest, mate, I don't know that we were the better team. I think we were the least bad team. It's just a battle of who can be, the least terrible. And West Ham just about won out on that. But it was only just, to be honest, we've done the reaction podcast already this week, and the title was, can kicked down the road for at least another week. That's all it feels like at the moment. I think everyone's lost total faith that he can do anything, Lopetegui, that he's the answer to any, of the so-called problems that there were beforehand. I'm probably a bit more, I don't know, I would say I'm the sort of loud spokesman for the quiet majority at West Ham. And I say majority, I perhaps don't say majority anymore, but for a huge but quiet part of the fan base who weren't desperate for David Moyes to leave. I get a lot of grief about it at the moment, again, from the loud vocal sections that did want him gone. But quite frankly, I just think it's a bit of an easy get out to go, it had gone a bit stale, blah, blah, blah. Ultimately, I just think he's sort of come from the top, really. He'd been so good for West Ham. We had a great start to the season. We had our best ever to last season. We had our best ever points total at the halfway mark. And then he was given a bit of this is David Moyes' sort of account of it. He was given a contract that wasn't great, like a contract offer. Yeah. You know what I mean? Hardly sort of showed real backing and confidence from the board. And then it all fell off a cliff after that, really. That just bred uncertainty, when really that was a time for David Sullivan to do something bold and be brave and sort of take decisive action one way or the other, not just try and rumble on, not give David Moyes a half-arsed contract offer. Yeah. Go, look, you're the man to take us forward. We still believe you're the future of the club. And then go big on it and sort of say to fans who weren't happy with the style of football, look, David Moyes has done wonders for this club. We're going to stick with him. This is who we are. Like it or lump it sort of thing, really, because fans don't always know what they're talking about, do they? That we like to think we all do, but fans don't always know what's best for a football club. So that didn't happen. And much to my sort of disappointment, really. And then the fact that this is the answer and this is where the club find themselves now. I go through different emotions with it, Craig, to be honest with you, but it's just bad. It's so disappointing and sad and upsetting and infuriating sometimes. It's all of those things, because those days we had under David Moyes were the best days of my West Ham supporting life by a mile, and it was a sustainable thing he had going on there as well. And we come 9th last season. Like, you know, if you hear some of our fans talk, you think we're in a relegation battle, but it's not. But no, they weren't happy with that. And we've moved on. There was no acknowledgement that it could get worse, as well as this utopic glory land that fans all assumed was going to happen. And it's terrible. Lopetegui is not the answer. He's not the answer short term. He's not the answer mid term. Don't think he's the answer long term. If it's one of those, if Lopetegui is the answer, what the hell is the question? Is where we find ourselves now. The football's terrible. He doesn't have a clue what he's doing. The system's weird, and I just feel like he's sort of trying to be. He's just stubbornly sticking to it now, rather than, you know, screwing a head on his shoulders and being a bit pragmatic and playing the cards that he's been dealt, or playing the hand that he's inherited at West Ham. He signed loads of his own players over the summer. They were all terrible. Guido Rodriguez, awful. I say they're all terrible. That's a bit of an overdoing it, actually. Guido Rodriguez is awful. Carlos Soler, I don't really understand him. Tadibo and Kilman, I think, are good players, but I think the setup, they're just being exposed time and time again by the midfield and the insanely high line Lopetegui's trying to play. Just none of it makes sense. None of it links up. His in-game management's poor. It just seems like he just doesn't know what he's doing. Like, he just doesn't have a clue what his best team is, and he just lurches from one thing to another. And no one understands it. It's just bad, mate. It's really, really, really bad. And we won't go down, to be honest. Like, we won't go down. We've got too many. And Wolves is a classic example of that, mate, right? Where we will get enough points to stay up. Yeah. But that's not the point of West Ham anymore. That was the old days when that was sort of what you'd say about a season. That's not who we are these days as a club. And that's not what we have been for the past few years. If you're going to get rid of your best manager of the modern era, that's got to be in order to kick on and improve, or at least sustain it. Yeah. Like, to go back to campaigns where you're just sort of giving up already. But at this stage of the season, it's like the 11th of December. We've got Villa away in the FA Cup. We're already out their League Cup, lost to Liverpool. Not in Europe. Totally got no chance of finishing in Europe in the league. Villa away in the FA Cup, so we'll lose that. And it's like, what's the point? What is the point? I might as well just turn everything off until May, and then switch on again, because we've got nothing to play for. And that wasn't the promise. That was, you know, and that's, what's the point of getting rid of David Moyes if this is it? So yeah, no, I'm not very positive at the moment, mate. Not feeling very good about it all.
No, I can understand as well. And of course, you did have me on the tap-in going back to February last year. And one thing I did say, and maybe I was short-sighted in what I said as well, was with regards to David Moyes. That was one of the topics. Of course, Moyes was in a little bit of a poor run of games. But I did turn around and I said that the West Ham team are a good group of players, and Moyes should be getting more out of them. And just taking it back to ourselves as well, Will, you know,
I just think that's such an easy thing to say, mate. I just think that's so many fans say that, and it's just easy. Like, I don't think the squad is quite as good as people will make out. Yeah, like, as in, we've got, like, Mohamed Kudus is okay, but his end product has absolutely deserted him since the end of last season, probably April. Yeah. Paqueta's a Rolls Royce of a player, but his head's not in it. All the betting stuff's clearly affecting him. Jared Bowen is absolutely unbelievable. He is like our best player by a mile, and he is, like, you know, I'm not saying he's world class, but he's world level, like he's international level footballer. And then beyond that, we've just sort of got like a decent bunch of like Premier League players. Do you know what I mean? Emerson's brilliant. He's really, really good. But beyond that, it's like Wan-Bissaka's fine. You know, Fabianski and Areola, decent 7 out of 10 goalkeepers. I do like Todibo and Kilman. I think they'd be better in a better system. But again, Kilman was 40 million. He wasn't like 80 million quid. You know, Souček, great player, great servant to the club. But he's a decent midfielder. I think people go on as if we've got this squad like Man City's. So I think it's okay. And I think actually what David Moyes was doing was getting as much out of the squad as he could. I think he did like wonders with the team. And that's why I think it's proven by what we see now. It's just easy to go, he should be getting more out of the players. Well, there's never any acknowledgement there with that actually what he's getting out of them now is good. Like to finish 9th with that bunch last season, he's probably about average, right? It's probably about run of the mill. Had a good start to the season and it tailed off. But if you'd have just got that amount of points at a steady pace over the course of the season, fans wouldn't have been that bothered. And so, I just find it difficult. And like now, what we see is it's perhaps not as easy to get what David Moyes was getting out of the players as everyone thought, because Lopetegui is getting absolutely sod all out of them.
Well, one thing, that I actually said at the start of last season, because I had doubts over Andoni Iraola. We went through that bad run of games at the start of the season.
Yeah.
And Andoni Iraola did change things. He went a little bit more direct instead of passing it around. Our game against Everton at the start of last season was really, really poor. But I completely agree with you on the fact that Lopetegui is not changing. He just doesn't seem to want to actually, and points are the main thing in football, aren't they? You can play sexy football and get relegated, as I said, during the tap-in, sexy football. But Lopetegui's not even doing that now, is he?
No, and that's look. I'll be the first one to say that I hated watching West Ham when we played under Sam Allardyce, but those who make out that David Moyes is the same as Sam Allardyce are just plain wrong. They're just plain wrong. They obviously weren't there for both because it is a world apart. Sam Allardyce was playing awful, dreadful, ugly football in order to come 13th. I think we did have we became 10th under in the first season. Yeah. Like it was grim. It was properly grim, rubbish stuff. David Moyes was not like that. We had some really attacking, exciting players. We scored plenty of goals. We got into Europe. It was just like pragmatic. It was because it wasn't possession based, but it was effective, mate. On the whole, like if you look at his entire era, it was clearly an effective style of football. And watching West Ham win games was brilliant. So, and that's why I'm so disappointed about the whole thing, because he struck a balance, did Moyes? He struck a balance. And I think, generally that, I don't know how to word this, but I think typically at West Ham, the fans' expectation of like results and style of play are too high on both sides. Yeah. I think in the Premier League these days, if you're going to try and play this sexy football, as you coined the phrase, your results are just going to dip. Like, look at Brighton. People talk about Brighton as if they're this oracle of like amazing football. Look at Ange Postecoglou at Tottenham. They've got 2 more points than us, and they have got a considerably better squad. Their squad's miles better than ours. Like in this day and age, as it probably always has been, really, like part of football is the unglamorous, ugly stuff. It's the running, it's the tackling, it's the desire, it's the unselfish runs off the ball. It's lots of stuff that doesn't make it onto YouTube highlight reels or highlight packages on Match of the Day, but it's bloody important. And that's why players like Thomas Souček are so vital. And I think fans who just sort of, run him down or run down the unglamorous side of stuff that David Moyes had finally got a West Ham team doing for the first time, basically on a sustainable basis in a generation. Yeah. After probably most of the West Ham teams I've seen, we'd often have some good players in there, but there'd be just too many collapses. There'd be too many games which just ran away from us. early doors, and you never got under David Moyes. Everyone knew. I think it was one of the first meetings he had with the squad was like, if you don't run under me, you're not playing under me.
Yeah.
That was effectively it. And people might think, oh, that's a bit archaic or whatever, but it's not. If you think Man City don't cover a lot of ground, or Liverpool don't work hard and run hard, and look at Arsenal at the moment, everyone's jabbering on about them, how good they are at set pieces. When it was David Moyes making West Ham good at set pieces, it wasn't, oh, brilliant, like look at the clever set pieces David Moyes is instilling. That's part of the game as well, and we're winning games because of it. It was, oh, he's such a dinosaur. Arsenal do it, and it's like, oh, Arsenal's so clever. Look at it, they're finding ways to win. That's what champions do.
Yeah.
It's just different narrative all the time, mate. It's just, it's infuriating.
Do you think, because I think it is a stay of execution for Lopetegui. The West Ham board, it's believed, have said that, they want to see a run of results now. And
so do we all.
Yeah, I think, looking at the fixtures coming up, there is that, let's be fair, a lot of West Ham fans would probably look at Bournemouth away and think we can get a result there.
A point, I think. I don't think anyone's thinking we're going to win. You're playing well. You're a good side. We don't always do well down there either. So.
Yeah. But if we are to win on Monday night, do you think they will call time on Lopetegui? And what do they do from there? Do they bring Moyes back? Would you be happy to see Moyes back?
Well, I would, but I don't think they. There was a TalkSport story the other day that Moyes was happy or was open to a return. I don't think the club would do that. I don't think they've got the gall. No, sadly, I've got a feeling the club will. I think they'll just run it till the end of the season. I think they'll know he's not going to go down. The season's over anyway. What's the point of changing now? And that's such a bleak way to look at it, particularly where we have been the past few years.
Yeah.
But I think they'll just go. They won't get rid of him until we're like relegation threatened, which we're just not going to be, mate. Like I say, we'll limp through enough games and get a few ugly wins. We've already beaten Ipswich and Crystal Palace this season, and then Wolves obviously beat Man United at home, which was the only one people probably didn't expect. But we'll just do that. We'll get enough points. We are less bad than at least sort of probably 5 or 6 teams. So no, I think sadly, and it's proper depressingly, I think the board will just. I think they'll just limp on. I think they'll, unless it gets terrible, hope that out of nowhere we produce a decent run and finish in the top half.
Yeah.
And then reevaluate in the summer, because if without a clear and obvious better option waiting to like take over the reins, from a financial point of view, it's a waste of time having to pay Lopetegui off and then be paying a new manager like straight away, when you can just carry on with the one you've got and he'll stay in the league and then reevaluate next summer.
You are only, though, 7 points behind the European places. I know 15 games is gone, but there is plenty of time to catch that up. And West Ham,
mate, we are not catching up 15 points. Trust me.
Well, 7 points. 7 points. To get back in. To 15 games gone. You've 7 points behind. But I think West Ham fans deserve and should be looking at those European places. And if we are to win on Monday night, I can't see how David Sullivan can't make that decision there and then and bring somebody in, if it's not David Moyes, Graham Potter, or somebody like that.
I just don't think, mate, that there is enough of a like structure or identity at the club at the highest level to know who the right option is. I just don't think that's there. So it's just so easy to say, I'll just bring Graham Potter in, but I just find that a bit of a lazy, not from you. I just mean whenever anyone says it, it's because ultimately they're saying that because he's out of work. He did really well at Brighton under a very specific system, and Brighton are an excellently run club who know exactly what they are. And their recruitment policy is really stats driven and data driven and blah, blah, blah. And then he went to Chelsea, which is a bit more like the West Ham on the, it's run on the seat of its pants, chaos and whatever. And he totally flopped there, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't necessarily think he would work at a club like West Ham. I think it needs like an all powerful statesman type figure as David Moyes were. And I think we're a club where managing upwards is as important as managing your players and having a good tactical philosophy.
Final question that I wanted to ask you, and a player that I really, really did want to see us sign, but you got him, is Crysencio Summerville. How good's he been? Yeah,
he's the silver lining around a very, 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 very big dark cloud, Craig.
Yeah.
He's mustard. He's really keen. He looks really good. He's basically he's the sort of player Said Benrahma thought he was. He's really high energy. His end product looks a little bit better. He just looks keen and he just looks like alive. And I really like looking at him. He's a really class act. Obviously, he's only little. But no, he just looks. I'm more than happy to have him in the starting lineup every week. Yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'm sure he'll be a real asset moving forwards as well. But, Will, final thing, I ask this to every guest that I get on. How's it going to go on Monday night? You don't sound very positive. Do you think that Bournemouth will take all 3 points, or you're not going to bet against your own team, are you?
Oh, there's every chance Bournemouth will take all 3 points, Craig. I think you're playing really well this season. Yeah. I saw, how unlucky you were to beat Chelsea. Not to beat Chelsea at home.
Yeah.
You're all over them. In the games I've watched, I think you look really tidy. You look really, really good little side. Andoni Iraola is onto a good thing, and he's the only reason, funnily enough, why I'm not totally against. Or sort of the only thing that was initially keeping me having a bit of faith in Lopetegui was because Iraola started so badly at you, and has totally turned it round. I still can't see that happening with us, but no, I think you're a good little side, good manager. You played really well in lots of games this season. I wouldn't be surprised if you beat us comfortably at all. We're a total shambles. I'm just find it really difficult to sort of. Ultimately, I think I'd be stunned if we won. But although we have one at Crystal Palace and one at Newcastle this season, so I don't know. But no, I think at best we get a point. It's 1-1 at best for me. But I've been saying that all season. So I think it'll be one of them where if we do win, it will kind of be a surprise and a bit against the run of play. But no, maybe we get a 1-1. But if it was 3-0 to Bournemouth, that would be the least surprising thing ever for me.
No, fair enough. Before you go, do tell us where everybody can find you.
Yeah, so we've done our reaction podcast already. We had Tom, me and James, who's my co-host. We had Tom Rennie on, actually, from Talk Sport and Sirius XM this week. He's absolutely brilliant. So if you want to give our latest podcast a listen, just search We Are West Ham. You find it on YouTube and the podcast as well. And then obviously Craig will be doing our opposition view straight after this, so you can listen to that episode later this week as well if you like. Just search We Are West Ham podcast on any platforms and you'll find us quick enough.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Will. And in the description below is the link as well, so do go over to We Are West Ham podcast and go and subscribe. But Will, been a real pleasure, and no doubt I'll see you very, very soon, because of course we've got your podcast to do as well.
Good man. Cheers, Craig.
Thanks so much, Will. And thank you for joining us. Please hit the like, subscribe, and the bell button below. It helps this channel to grow. See, I always rhyme it, don't I? I seem to rhyme it. To be honest, I stumbled upon that. It's, I'm not going to take too much credit for it. Do check out all of our other interviews as well. Of course, we have had David Icke on this show. We've had Omid Jalili. Of course, he is, yes, he is a Chelsea fan, but he's also supporting Ipswich Town as well. We've had loads of other guests as well. We've had Richie Neville from Five, Damon Minchella from Ocean Colour Scene, Richard Archer from Hardfi. Fantastic concert recently. Absolutely loved it. Well done, Rich. And hopefully will be another concert coming up very, very soon. Or gig. That's what we like to call them, gigs, Yeah. Also, we've had Adam Devlin from the Blue Tones. We've had Gaz Whelan from the Happy Mondays. And we've had lots more. Go to the interview tab, click through and see what you like. There's plenty in there for you. I'm sure some West Ham fans will also enjoy it as well. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We'll see you in the next video. Up the Cherries. We'll see you soon.
The TalkSport Fan Network.
The ultimate on-demand destination for the UK's best fan-led football podcasts.
Want authentic supporter insight on all things Bournemouth? Follow Up the Cherries in all departments on the TalkSport Fan Network.
Club-dedicated content created by the fans, for the fans.
Search TalkSport Fan Network.